Highlights channel of the Ranveer Show. This is TRS Clips.
So first thought is that when we talk about the Indian caste system and this and that, we should control it ourselves. It should not be something that other people control.
Yeah.
Their interests have never been for India. The divide and rule of the British Empire was not to help one community or another, but make them fight and take over.
Just 1 second, sir, before we continue.
Yeah.
You know what steel manning an argument is? Straw manning and steel manning?
Yes.
Straw manning is where a lot of listeners who are anti-Modi now have already listened to this podcast and said, "Oh, I'm not going to listen to this guy," because they already stuck in their perspective. Steel manning is seeing the entire argument from a 360 degree
But let me
perspective.
just tell you this, that I have lived in the United States 52 years. Long before Modi, the same problems were happening. During the Congress government, Harvard and places like that were attacking the caste system. Indira Gandhi was fighting them. US was interfering in India's internal affairs during Indira Gandhi's time, during Rahul Gandhi's time, Manmohan Singh's time. So the American liberal left has been interfering with India throughout. The US Commission on Religious Freedom, which reports to the US Congress, set up during Bill Clinton's time, was long before Modi.
Yeah.
So this problem with India is not a problem with Modi. It's not because of Modi that they've started this. This we should understand.
Okay.
This is pre-Modi. They were already doing it. Now they can blame it on Modi.
Yeah. Let's also address the fact that the caste system is a devil of the modern day, and we're not defending it or
Yeah.
anything. And it does cause problems in the interiors of the country.
Absolutely. But let me now come to the second point.
Sure.
One of the key buzzwords that they're championing is called diversity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI. They're championing this in all the corporate worlds. That diversity is good and so on. But India is the most diverse country that has ever existed. There's more diversity of language and food and ethnicity and spirituality and whatever. Nobody doubts that the facts on the ground are that India did not get homogenized as one like China did, like American culture, British culture, French culture. They're all very homogeneous, Japanese culture. Whereas in India, by comparison with all of them, has remained extremely diverse. So how do you explain the diversity of India if there is human rights problem? How can so many people survive, respect each other, get along with each other for so long? Obviously, there must be something in our social thought, in our social structures, which promotes diversity. How could diversity come out of nothing? It has to be promoted. So we are able to promote a very diverse lifestyle. Even in Bombay, you'll see so many diverse communities. Everywhere you go, you'll see that. You will not see that anywhere else in the world. It's not a modern phenomenon. It's a very old phenomenon in India. So this is something the social scientists are not studying. They're not willing to admit that India is a diverse society because of its Vedic culture.
This is what happens when you study social science about one country while you're sitting in country B.
Yes.
Because you're taught according to the fabric of that country, and
Right.
then you overlook nuances and you are not able to steel man arguments.
Right.
You're not able to see the argument from a 360 degree perspective.
And also you're funded a certain way.
What?
Your funding comes from a certain way. Who funds you? And you're part of a cabal of like-minded thinkers. So you don't even, it takes a lot of courage to break ranks from your own group. So in America, the social sciences are very group-oriented. You will find a certain school of thought here and there, and that school of thought consists of people who sort of more or less agree with each other. And young people are trained, they go into the doctorate program, they work under a professor, they learn his point of view, then they also continue that.
Yep.
It's a parampara system. Private universities in India and places like this are brainwashing the elites of India, not the lower level social demographic people. And this is very dangerous. And this kind of new ideology in places like Ashoka is coming from Harvard.
What is the ideology?
The ideology is what they call wokeism in America, what is also called critical race theory. Now, this was developed in a good way to help the blacks deal with the whites in America, which is their problem. And it's an American problem. Racism is an American problem, and blacks need help, no doubt about it. But now they have said Dalits are the blacks of India, and the non-Dalits are the whites of India, and India is a racist society. This is what the critical race theory has been applied to India in this way.
Do you think that's true for rural areas?
I don't think any of this is true, because I think the traditional system of Varna was very different, and Varna Jati were very different. And now that the caste has been created, the hierarchy of caste was created by the British. Lord Risley did census and forced people into a hierarchy saying you belong here, you belong there. And the Indian government foolishly in the constitution made it something permanent, long term, by giving quotas based on caste rather than quotas based on individual. I mean, if they had said the individual who is below the poverty line, comes from an unfortunate family, will be given a special rating and a special quota, that individual who's unfortunate could be a Brahmin. There are Brahmins who are in trouble. And there are Dalits who are billionaires. There are Dalits who are billionaires. So rather than fixing the identity of a person and creating identity conflict, it should be at the individual level, individual need. Individual need.
You mean based on income?
Income, maybe education, maybe other factors, maybe certain rural areas are considered, get extra points because when you're from there, you don't have the infrastructure. Maybe. So now that there is Aadhaar card, everybody is identified. If they can stratify people at the individual level and maybe at the family level based on social deprivation, those who are deprived, as opposed to those who have social privileges. I would say the same caste person who lives in Delhi and who's got a job and he drives a taxi and his kid's working for a tech company, he's a different status than a poor farmer of the same family, same jati, who lives in a rural area. So you cannot just treat them the same. And so, what you have to do is appreciate mobility. Give credit to the fact that India has had mobility. So that mobility is at the personal level, individual level. There are individuals from all communities who are doing better than others from the same community. So this has to be appreciated. So now the technology exists, the AI system exists, the big data machinery exists, that you could actually build an individual profile of 1.4 billion people and come up with algorithms to see who deserves the maximum help on an individual level, nothing to do with the caste.
Okay. So there's a scientific means to actually segregate society based on who needs how much help.
That is correct. You can come up with a criteria of what kind of help is needed by people in Mumbai, what is needed in a small town, and then you can come up with what would be the profile of a person who deserves it the most. And that person could be of any caste. If that's his parameters, then he should be getting that help.
And currently, the responsibility of giving help rests in bureaucrats' hands.
Yes. And it is on the basis of caste, whether your caste is like this or that, where your caste ranking is. And the ranking of the caste is frozen, but people are dynamic. People of a certain caste are different strata than their parents were. And their kids will grow up in a different strata. So you have to appreciate the fluidity of individuals moving up and down.
Yeah. I hear everything you're saying. The only reason I'm not completely convinced with what you're saying is because I feel that from what I've heard, again, this is not my own experience, when you go to rural areas, people of lower caste are treated extremely differently. They're extremely ostracized. And I believe that that's also the argument of most of the people who are talking about caste-related issues.
Yes. So those in those areas, since the individuals are treated that way, they deserve help. But you cannot apply it to that caste definition all over the country as if it's uniform. And even the idea of minority. I mean, I would say Kashmiri Hindus are minority. And in Nagaland, Hindus are minority. So if you look at the definition of a minority, why do you say that Muslims are a minority everywhere, even though in some places they are not a minority? And Hindus are a majority everywhere, even though in certain places they're not a majority. Okay. So I think you have to look at individual situations which vary by location and very different from one state to another.
Okay. So what you're saying all in all is that all these ideas of religious segregation and caste-based segregation are old world.
Yes.
And now that the science and technology is here to scan the country and to help in governance and bureaucracy, bloody hell, use it.
I am saying absolutely. I'm saying this is one of the most important uses of AI. Because the machineries exist to capture all this data. You can capture immense amount of data today, which would be very manual and not practical to do. But today, you know who's buying what, who's got what credit, who's got how much income, who travels where, who takes a railway car, this or that. You can build like a huge database of consumers, individuals, communities, and keep it alive and figure out who needs help and who doesn't need help.
Will this actually happen?
I think this is an idea which is way beyond the thinking I have seen. It's neither in the social scientists thinking this far ahead. This is a social sciences job. Indian social scientists should be coming up with dissertations. They should be coming up with theories and solutions and proposals like this. Nor do I see this kind of innovation with legal people, and nor do I see it with the Niti Aayog people. So I don't know who's going to champion this. When you look at the markers of privilege, and just, instead of blindly saying caste and minorities, you should also look at things like English language. English language is a marker of privilege in terms of jobs And not just English, who's got the American accent, who's got the British accent, who's got the urban cosmopolitan accent, who's got the village accent. It matters a lot. It matters in your social standing, your matrimonial prospects, in your job prospects. And people are being, in an interview, if you speak very nice and slick, your chances are better. So this is a caste system also. This is a caste marker. It is not that the Brahmins who knew Sanskrit and kept Sanskrit from other people were privileged. You can't apply that today. I don't think that somebody knowing Sanskrit gives him more jobs today or gives him a better whatever, So I think this Brahmanical privilege, as they call it, is a very old idea. Today it is the Angreziyat. The person who are not only Angrezi as a language, but Angreziyat as body language, as style, as your brand name, brand consciousness, affiliations, associations, कि मेरे visa है, मैं वहाँ गया था, मैंने ये किया, वो किया. All that adds your profile as a person and gives you stature and gives you privileges. So if you really want to be an honest left-wing, honest liberal, looking for social justice and dismantling the structures of privilege, you should be looking at it this way.
You do know that you are categorized as a hardcore right-wing person.
I don't know how I'm categorized. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
But I'm telling you that fighting Angreziyat, why is it considered right-wing? Nowhere else in the world it's considered right-wing.
Yeah.
So in Mexico, the left-wing radical communists are fighting against Spanish language. It came from a colonizer because Mexico did not had its own languages. But the Spaniards brought Christianity and the Spaniards brought Spanish language. Yeah. And so the liberal left-wing want to do away with that very big cathedral, talking about doing away with house of worship. जैसे हमारा हुआ था ना, राम मंदिर. उनके in Mexico City is a huge cathedral. It's one of the World Heritage Centers. And when they were digging up the foundation to do some repair work, they found that it underneath was a Native American temple. So that created a whole storm. People saying, isko demolish karo. I mean, of course, that's a very radical idea. They won't do that. But the point I'm making is that the left wing in those countries supports native religion, native culture, native language, as compared to the foreign brought. So if the Indians were true liberals in that sense, then they would want to have local languages rather than Angreziyat, rather than Urdu, because these are brought from overseas. They would want the local ways of life, the local food, the local ways of worshipping to be encouraged. So that would be my view, would be a very liberal view in many countries in the world.
All in all, you're saying that the kind of criticism that India gets abroad is partially valid and mostly not.
Yes.
Because those arguments are extremely Western thinking based arguments.
Right. And Indians, liberals who should be thinking for themselves. A liberal is a person who says, I'll think for myself. Mere ko koi sikhayega nahi. I'll learn how to think for myself. That's the ultimate liberalism. But I find when I talk to the Indian leftists, they just ghota marke, they just keep reciting the same ideology to you and exclude you because they can't deal with your facts.
I think anyone on the extreme left or extreme right of our country is almost always loosely informed, highly opinionated.
That is correct.
And I say that for both extremes.
Under-informed and over-opinionated, I have said this for a long time. That is what a lot of our people are.
Okay. And you'll see this with a lot of teenagers, college students who've just begun to learn about the world of politics or geopolitics, get extremely riled up in their own emotions.
But I want to ask, why would you consider it right-wing for someone who says that Angreziyat is an oppressive structure? And one of the criteria for deciding who should be given more quotas and who should be given more help should be based on Angreziyat as a scale. I would say that maybe you should have a quota for people to be hired in their local language.
I think you're categorized mostly as right-wing because you are mostly pro-Modi. And again, you have your own criticisms of the Modi government, which are not highlighted enough when people are criticizing you.
But then these people are probably not old enough to remember that long before Modi was in the scene, nobody heard of Modi on the political scene. He was in the local level. I was having the same arguments. And the West was criticizing India for the same things long before Modi. This is something that people should come up with and understand the facts. During the Indira Gandhi time, during the Rahul Gandhi time, Manmohan Singh time, all these attacks on India's caste and minority were going on. It's just that now they can be blamed on Modi, but previously it was not being blamed on Hindutva, BJP, Modi. This was a problem of Indian society that they were criticizing. And I was on the side of defending India when there was no Modi around, so there was no question of being pro-Modi.
Okay. So these are playlists made especially for you. We've tailor-made learning experiences for you on TRS Clips.